My name is Chloe, and I am 22 years old. The night my mother decided to turn my life into a twisted reality show started at a desolate gas station on the edge of the interstate. It was the kind of place that did not appear on travel brochures. The air tasted like stale diesel and burnt rubber. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed with the sound of dying insects. I had only stepped out for 5 minutes to use the restroom and buy a bottle of water. When I walked back across the cracked concrete, the engine of my mother's silver SUV was already purring. I adjusted my backpack strap and reached for the rear passenger handle. It was locked. I pulled again. Nothing happened. Through the tinted glass, I saw my mother Deborah turn in the driver's seat. She looked at me not with concern, but with that sugary synthetic smile she reserved for dismantling my self-esteem in public. The window rolled down just halfway. It was enough for her voice to drift out sweet and poisonous into the humid evening air. "Let us see if she can find her own way back," she said. Her eyes gleamed with a cruel sort of excitement. "Tyler, do you think she can survive one night out here?" From the passenger seat, my older brother Tyler laughed. It was a loud, hollow sound. He held his phone up, and the camera lens pointed directly at my confused face. "Survival challenge starts now, Chloe," he shouted. "Wait," I said. My hand was still on the door handle. "You are joking. Open the door." Deborah did not unlock the door. Instead, she pressed her foot on the gas pedal. The tires screeched against the pavement. I stumbled back as the heavy vehicle lurched forward. I ran 2 steps. I waved my hand. I thought they would stop at the exit. I thought the brake lights would flash red and they would roll down the window to tell me it was just a prank. They did not stop. I watched the red taillights shrink into the distance until they merged with the stream of heavy trucks on the highway. They were gone. I stood there in the swirling dust. The silence that followed was heavier than the noise of the traffic. Then the panic set in. It started as a cold knot in my stomach and spread rapidly to my limbs. I slapped my hands against the back pockets of my jeans. They were flat. They were empty. My wallet was in the back seat of the SUV. My denim jacket was in the back seat. My portable charger was in the back seat. I pulled my phone from my front pocket. The screen lit up to show the battery icon turned red. 18%. I had 18% battery life and $0 to my name in a state where I knew no one. A chill wind cut through my thin t-shirt. I wrapped my arms around myself and looked around the lot. That was when I saw him. At pump number 4, a massive 18-wheeler truck was idling. The driver was a large man with grease stains on his shirt and tattoos snaking up his neck. He was not looking at the pump. He was looking at me. He had watched the car leave. He saw me standing there shivering and alone. He licked his lips. He placed the nozzle back on the pump and started walking across the dark lot directly toward me. His boots crunched on the gravel. This was no longer a family prank. This was the line between life and death. The man stopped less than 2 feet from me. I could smell the stale tobacco clinging to his flannel shirt. He grinned, and it was a predatory expression that made my skin crawl. "Hey, little lady," he rumbled. "Looks like you got left behind. You need a ride." He reached out a hand toward my shoulder. His fingers were thick and stained with grease. I tried to step back, but my heels hit the concrete curb. I was trapped. Suddenly, the glass door of the station flew open with a violent crash. "Hey, Chloe!" a voice shouted like a gunshot. "Your boyfriend is pulling up right now. Get inside." I looked over. The woman from behind the counter had stepped out. Her name tag read Martha. She was in her 50s with gray steel hair and a face that looked carved from granite. She held her phone up high with the camera lens pointed directly at the trucker. She was filming him. Martha did not blink. She stared the man down with a ferocity that made him pause. "You got a problem, sir?" she asked. Her tone suggested that if he did have a problem, she would be the one to finish it. The trucker grunted. He dropped his hand and muttered something foul under his breath before turning back to his rig. "Come on!" Martha waved me in. I scrambled past her into the safety of the store. The air inside was cool and smelled of floor wax and old coffee. Martha locked the door behind us with a loud click. She did not hug me. She did not offer empty pity. She walked behind the counter and poured a cup of hot water from the dispenser. "Here," she said, sliding it across the counter. Drink this, you are shaking. I gripped the cup. The warmth seeped into my frozen fingers. Thank you, I whispered. My phone buzzed in my hand. My heart leaped into my throat. It was Deborah. A desperate and naive part of me thought she was calling to apologize. I thought she had turned the car around. I thought she had realized that leaving her daughter alone at night in a strange state was madness. I unlocked the screen. It was a text message. I read the words, and the hope inside me died a violent death. Stop standing there crying. I want to see if you have any backbone. Walk to the next toll booth. It is 5 miles north. If you get there in 2 hours, I will pick you up. Do not be lazy. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. 5 miles. She wanted me to walk 5 miles along the shoulder of an interstate highway in the pitch-black night. She wanted me to walk past speeding trucks and predators like the man outside without a jacket or a weapon. This was not a lesson in independence. This was a death sentence. My first instinct was pathetic. It was a reflex born from 22 years of conditioning. My legs actually twitched toward the door. The voice in my head sounded exactly like Deborah. It told me that if I did not go, I was proving her right. It whispered that I was useless and weak and dramatic, just like she always said. I imagined walking out into that suffocating darkness. I told myself that maybe if I made it to the toll booth, she would finally respect me. Maybe if I showed up exhausted and bleeding with blisters on my feet, she would hug me and say I had passed the test. I was terrified of the dark, but I was more terrified of making her angry. I did not want to be the disappointment again. I reached for the door handle. Martha moved faster than I expected. She snatched the phone from my trembling hand before I could take a step. She read the message. Her face twisted into a scowl of pure disbelief. She let out a sharp curse word that echoed off the linoleum floor. She looked me dead in the eye, and her expression was fierce. "Listen to me, girl," she said. Her voice was low and hard. "That stretch of highway is pitch black. There is no shoulder to walk on. The trucks drive 80 miles per hour out there, and they will not see you until you are under their wheels. You will not make it to the toll booth. You will end up in a ditch or in the back of a stranger's van." She shook the phone at me. "This is not teaching. This is not discipline. This is murder." Her words hung in the air like smoke. Murder. My phone buzzed again in her hand. She turned the screen toward me so I could see it. It was a new message from Tyler. "Run fast, little turtle." It was followed by a laughing face emoji. I stared at the glowing pixels. He was enjoying this. He was sitting in this climate-controlled leather seat of the SUV, probably eating snacks and laughing, while I stood here contemplating walking into traffic just to please them. He was tracking my misery like it was a sport. Something inside my chest snapped. It was not a loud break. It was the quiet sound of a heavy tether finally being cut. The fear evaporated. The desperation to be loved evaporated. In their place, a cold, hard clarity settled over me. I looked at the glass door where the darkness waited. Then I looked at Martha. I took a deep, unsteady breath and let it out slowly. I did not text back. I did not call to beg. "Call 911, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. It was steady. It was devoid of tears. "And please let me borrow a charger. I need my battery full for what comes next." Martha nodded once. She picked up the landline receiver and dialed 3 digits. As she waited for the operator to answer, I realized the truth. The obedient daughter who would do anything for a crumb of affection died in that gas station. The woman who was willing to burn it all down to survive was just waking up. Russ drove his faded pickup truck with a steady hand. The cab smelled of grease and old peppermint. We did not speak much during the 20-minute drive to the county sheriff's station. The silence was not awkward. It was heavy with the shared knowledge that some people are simply broken inside. When we walked through the glass doors of the station, the air conditioning hit me like a wall of ice. The front desk was manned by a man who introduced himself as Officer Miller. He looked exhausted. He had a coffee stain on his shirt and the weary expression of a man who had seen too many petty disputes that night. I sat in the plastic chair opposite him and explained my situation. I kept my voice flat. I told him about the gas station. I told him about the text message. I told him about the 18% battery and the lack of money. Miller stopped writing in his notebook halfway through my story. He sighed and dropped his pen on the desk. "Look, miss," he said, He rubbed his temples. This sounds like a misunderstanding. Did you and your mother have a fight in the car? Did you argue about the radio or something? I stared at him. I was describing a crime, and he was describing a sitcom plot. No, I said. We did not fight. Miller waved a dismissive hand. Teenagers fight with their parents. It happens. You get mad and you hop out of the car. Then you regret it and you come here because you want a ride. We are not a taxi service for dramatic kids who want to teach their parents a lesson. Call them back. Apologize for whatever you said. They will come get you. His attitude made my blood boil. He did not see a victim. He saw a brat. He saw a waste of his time. The old Chloe would have cried. She would have apologized for bothering him and walked out into the night to face the darkness alone. But the old Chloe was gone. I stood up. I placed my hands flat on his desk and leaned forward until I was looking directly into his tired eyes. I did not blink. I did not let a single tear fall. I am 22 years old, I said. My voice was razor sharp. I am not a child throwing a tantrum. I am a citizen reporting a case of abandonment and reckless endangerment. My mother left me in a high-risk environment with no resources as a game. Miller looked taken aback. He sat up straighter. If you do not believe me, I continued, then do your actual job. Call the gas station. Martha is waiting by the phone. Demand the security footage. Watch the tape. Do it right now. Miller finally picked up the receiver with a heavy sigh. He dialed the number I gave him for the gas station. I heard him speak to Martha. His tone was professional but bored. He asked for the footage more to humor me than out of genuine concern. He gave her his email address. A moment later, a notification pinged on his desktop computer. He clicked the file. The video player opened. We watched the grainy black and white footage together in the silence of the station. On the screen, my mother's silver SUV sat idling by the pump. The timestamp flickered in the corner. I saw myself exit the store and walk toward the car. I reached for the handle. Then the car lurched forward. On the screen, my pixelated figure ran a few steps and waved. The car stopped. It waited. It sat there for 3 full seconds, inviting me to approach. As soon as I caught up, it sped away into the darkness with a burst of exhaust. It was not a misunderstanding. It was a sadistic game of cat and mouse. It was clearly calculated to humiliate and terrify. Miller watched it twice. The boredom vanished from his face completely. His jaw set hard. The lines around his eyes deepened with anger. He looked sick. "Okay," he said quietly. "That is not a parenting dispute. That is reckless endangerment. Where are they right now?" I started to answer, but a sudden wave of anxiety gripped me. I needed a backup plan. If the police could not help me immediately, I needed a bus ticket to get back to my campus dorm. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. I tried to purchase a one-way ticket on the midnight bus from the nearest depot. A red alert popped up on the screen. Transaction declined. Account frozen by primary cardholder. I stared at the words. My mother had not just left me. She had checked the time and realized I had not arrived at the toll booth yet. She knew I had disobeyed her order to walk 5 miles in the dark, so she punished me. She locked the joint account to ensure I had no resources. She wanted me stranded. She wanted me begging. I felt a cold rage settle in my chest. I turned the phone around and shoved it toward Miller. "Look at this," I said. My voice trembled with fury. She just froze my bank account. They did not just drive away. They stripped me of every resource I have in the middle of the night because I did not walk on the highway. Miller looked at the notification. His face turned a shade of red that signaled pure fury. He slammed his open palm against the desk with a loud crack that made me jump. "That is enough," he growled. "Let me find out exactly where this lovely family is partying tonight." "They are at the Grandview Hotel in Fairfield," I told Miller. My voice was steady, but my hands were clenched into fists under the table. It is her 30th high school reunion. She's been talking about this night for 6 months. Deborah did not just want to attend the reunion. She wanted to conquer it. She lived for the validation of strangers. She wanted to walk into that ballroom like a returning queen and make every person who knew her back then jealous of her perfect life. She wanted them to see the expensive car and the designer clothes and the successful son. She did not want them to see the daughter she had discarded at a gas station 2 hours ago. Miller nodded grimly. He picked up the phone and dialed the number for the police department in Fairfield. I listened as he spoke to the dispatcher on the other end. He did not mince words. He requested an immediate welfare check at the hotel. He used phrases like potential abandonment and reckless endangerment. He gave them the license plate number of the silver SUV and descriptions of Deborah and Tyler. While he coordinated the strike, I retreated into the only corner of the world I had left, my phone. I sat in the hard plastic chair in the corner of the station. The air conditioning hummed with a relentless chill that seeped into my bones. Russ walked over and handed me a glazed donut from a grease-stained box on the counter. It was stale and cold, but I ate it anyway because my stomach was empty, and the sugar gave me a brief spark of energy. I opened Facebook. A notification popped up at the top of my feed. My cousin Ashley, who had ridden to the party in a separate car, was broadcasting live. I tapped the screen. The video loaded with a burst of noise. Tinny music and laughter filled the quiet police station. I stared at the small screen. There they were. The ballroom was bathed in warm golden light. There were crystal chandeliers and round tables with white linens. The camera panned across the crowd and landed on my mother. Deborah was standing in the center of a group of women. She was holding a tall glass of white wine. Her head was thrown back in laughter. She looked radiant. She looked successful. She looked completely unburdened by the fact that her daughter was currently sitting in a police station 100 miles away with 18% battery life and a frozen bank account. She was raising her glass for a toast. The irony tasted bitter in my mouth. I took another bite of the stale donut and watched. I was not just a victim anymore. I was a spectator waiting for the final act of her performance to begin. On the cracked screen of my phone, the scene unfolded like a slow-motion train wreck. The connection was pixelated, but the audio was crystal clear. Deborah stood on the raised platform at the front of the ballroom. She was bathed in a warm golden spotlight that made her sequins sparkle. She gripped the microphone with a manicured hand and looked out at the sea of her former classmates with misty eyes. "Being a mother is about sacrifice," she said. Her voice trembled with practiced emotion. "We make hard choices to help our children grow. Family is everything to me. It is the anchor that holds us steady." Standing beside her, Tyler beamed. He looked like the perfect son in his expensive suit. He nodded along to her lies. Then the atmosphere in the room shifted. It started in the back near the double doors. Heads turned. A ripple of confusion moved through the crowd. The band stopped playing abruptly. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. 2 uniformed police officers walked into the frame. They did not look like they were there to celebrate. They moved with a grim purpose that parted the crowd of guests like water. They walked straight up to the stage. Deborah stopped mid-sentence. She lowered the microphone. Her smile faltered but did not disappear. She was a professional at maintaining appearances. "Ma'am," one of the officers said. His voice was loud enough to be picked up by my cousin's phone. "Are you Deborah? We need to ask you about your daughter Chloe. Where is she right now?" Deborah laughed. It was a nervous tinkling sound. She gestured vaguely toward the ceiling. "Oh, she is fine," she said. She glanced at the crowd and then back at the officers. "She is just a little tired. She is resting in her room at the hotel. Is there a problem, officers?" It was a lie so bold and so effortless that it took my breath away. She did not even blink. The officer took a step closer. He was not charmed. "That is a lie, ma'am," he said. His voice boomed across the silent ballroom. "Your daughter is not in this hotel. She is currently sitting in a sheriff's station 100 miles away in another state. You abandoned her at a gas station 3 hours ago, and you froze her financial assets to prevent her from returning." The reaction in the room was instantaneous. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. The quiet murmurs exploded into shocked whispers. My cousin Ashley zoomed the camera in on my mother's face. The transformation was terrifying. The color drained from her cheeks beneath her heavy makeup. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The mask of the perfect mother slipped and shattered on the floor. Tyler stepped forward. His face was red with embarrassment and anger. He tried to physically block the officers from getting closer to Deborah. "Hey!" he shouted. "You guys are making a huge mistake. It is just a prank." Okay, it is a family joke. She is a grown adult. Why are you making this such a big deal?" He reached out and shoved the officer in the chest. It was a stupid mistake born of arrogance. The officer reacted instantly. He spun Tyler around and slammed him against the edge of the stage. The sound of handcuffs ratcheting shut echoed through the phone speaker. "You are under arrest for obstruction of justice and disorderly conduct," the officer stated. The crowd screamed. Deborah let out a wail that sounded more like a siren than a cry. The second officer took her by the arm. "You need to come with us too, ma'am," he said. "We have questions about reckless endangerment." I watched as they led my mother and brother out of the ballroom. The guests parted to let them pass, but this time they were not looking at them with envy. They were holding up their phones. They were recording the ruin of the reputation my mother had spent 30 years building. I tapped the screen, and the video went black. I sat alone in the cold police station. I expected to feel triumph. I expected to feel happy. Instead, I felt a vast, hollow coldness. The perfect image was gone. It had taken her 3 decades to build it and 3 minutes to destroy it. It took 3 days for the University Emergency Fund to process my request and get me back to the safety of my dorm room. My family had been bailed out of jail the morning after the reunion disaster. They were currently facing misdemeanor charges for reckless conduct and were looking at mandatory community service. I thought the public humiliation at the hotel would be enough to silence Deborah. I thought the image of her being led away in handcuffs would force her into a quiet retreat. I was wrong. Narcissists do not feel shame. They feel rage, and when they are cornered, they attack. I woke up on Tuesday morning to a notification storm that nearly vibrated my phone off the nightstand. My mother had not gone into hiding. She had gone on the offensive. She had posted a public manifesto on Facebook that was over 2,000 words long. I read it with a detached sort of horror. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. "My heart is broken," she wrote. "We tried so hard to help Chloe, but her mental health has deteriorated. We staged an intervention to help her with her addiction issues, and she ran away. She invented this story about the gas station to extort money from us. Please pray for our lost daughter." It was a lie so vile it made my stomach turn. She was accusing me of drug addiction and insanity to cover her own cruelty. The comments section was filled with sympathy from relatives who did not know better. My Aunt Linda had sent me a message calling me an ungrateful wretch. My cousins were posting about how I had betrayed the family blood. I sat on my narrow dorm bed and felt the anger crystallize into something useful. I did not cry. I did not type out a defensive response. I did not try to explain myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. I called the public defender who had handled my statement. I asked him to email me the digital evidence files attached to the police report. He sent them within the hour. I opened Facebook. I did not write a long emotional letter. I simply created a new public post, and I tagged every single person who had called me names in the last 24 hours. I tagged Deborah. I tagged Tyler. I tagged Aunt Linda. I uploaded exactly 3 items. The first was the security footage from the gas station. It was the unedited clip. It showed me walking to the car. It showed the car waiting. It showed the car lurching forward to bait me. It showed the brake lights flaring as they waited for me to run, and then it showed the vehicle speeding away into the night, leaving me standing in the dust. It proved it was not a mistake. It was a game. The second was a screenshot of the text message Deborah sent me. The timestamp was visible. The words were clear. "Walk to the next toll booth. It is 5 miles north. Do not be lazy." It proved she knew exactly where I was and chose to endanger me. The third was a screenshot of the bank notification. Transaction declined, account frozen. The timestamp matched the exact moment I was sitting in the police station begging for help. It proved that her first instinct upon my disappearance was not to call the police, but to cut off my lifeline. I added a single caption to the post. "The truth does not need makeup. This is why I will never go back." I hit post. The reaction was immediate and violent. The wind did not just change direction, it turned into a hurricane. The comments under my mother's tearful post stopped. The sympathy evaporated. People watched the video of the car baiting me, and they were horrified. The text message about walking 5 miles on a highway exposed her claim of an intervention as a blatant lie. Strangers began to share my post. Then the local community pages picked it up. Then the business partners who worked with my father saw it. My Aunt Linda deleted her hateful comment within 10 minutes. My cousins went silent. The people who had been praising Deborah for her strength were now calling her a monster. The internet does not forgive child abuse when the receipts are printed in high definition. 2 hours later, I tried to check my mother's profile again. It was gone. She had deactivated her account under the weight of the backlash. She had tried to bury me with lies, but I had buried her with the truth. It has been 6 months since the night I walked into the police station. The fallout was slow and agonizing for my family, but it was liberation for me. Deborah and Tyler accepted a plea deal to avoid a trial that would have exposed even more of their cruelty. They are currently serving 200 hours of community service. There is a delicious irony in the fact that they spend their weekends wearing orange vests and picking up trash along the side of the highway. They are finally walking on the dangerous roads they once tried to force me to navigate alone. Their social standing has evaporated. In a small town, reputation is currency, and they are bankrupt. The invitations to galas and reunions have stopped coming. When they walk into the grocery store, people turn their carts down the other aisle. They are pariahs. I still receive letters from them occasionally forwarded through their lawyer. They beg me to delete the Facebook post. They plead with me to issue a statement saying it was all a misunderstanding. They use the phrase "we are family" like it is a magic spell that should erase my memory. I do not open them. I toss them directly into the shredder. I have not taken the post down. It stands as a monument to the truth. I changed my phone number. I moved into a new apartment on the other side of the city, and I installed deadbolts on the doors. I work a part-time job at the campus library to pay my rent, and I have taken out student loans to cover my tuition. My bank account is small, but every cent in it belongs to me. It cannot be frozen by anyone else. I speak to Martha every Sunday. The stranger who saved me at the gas station has become more of a mother to me in 6 months than Deborah was in 22 years. We talk about school and work and life. She reminds me that I am strong. She does not ask for anything in return. Tonight I sit on the floor of my tiny living room. The furniture is sparse and the walls are bare. I am eating instant noodles from a styrofoam cup. The steam rises up and warms my face. It is a cheap meal, but it tastes better than any expensive dinner I ever ate at my mother's table because it does not taste like guilt. I catch my reflection in the hallway mirror. The girl who used to beg for approval is gone. The girl who was afraid of the dark is gone. The woman looking back at me has tired eyes, but a steady gaze. I am not a child who is left behind. I am a woman who chose to keep moving forward.